Hello and a very warm welcome back to the channel of Motorbike Nonsense. What do you say about a GS that hasn't already been said before? Apart from the fact I'm reviewing a bike that's going to be replaced within the next 12 months, and it's a bike that's got me out going for a ride where I wouldn't normally go out for a ride. Is it perfect? 9. But here is my review. Let's go. I guess we should start this review with some facts and figures, because if there's ever a motorbike that's all about the numbers, it's this one. It might just be sales numbers. I tried to get sales figures out of BMW and they just said, what do you mean? Other people sell motorbikes, but in terms of price, this one is pretty spicy. A regular GS starts from just under £16,000. This is a GS Adventure, which will set you back another 600 quid, and it gets a 30-litre tank. But actually, you don't get much for that money. You really want the TE, the Touring Edition. I said it in my first ride. That gets all the bells and whistles, all the packs that you really want. So your cruise control, your electronic suspension, your Quickshifter up and down. The Adventure also gets crash bars as well. And the TE also gives you heated grips, and you get LED headlights on this one as well. And I have ridden this quite a lot at night, weirdly. And the main beam, the high beam, should I say, is brilliant. The low beam could use a bit more power, or at least a bit more reach. Now, you can get it in a couple of colour options. This is obviously the triple black, which is the most expensive one, which feels a bit mean because, well, look at it. It is just black. It is gloss black. It is, well, that's black plastic. I don't know if that really counts. There's grey black and there's black stripes there. It's like the reverse Adidas logo. But for people who dress in tweed suits, yeah, I'm not really sure I'd get it in black. I'd rather have it in the rally colour scheme, to be honest, the red, white and blue, because the seat changes colour then as well. It's quite cool. There's also ice grey. Now, the heart of the GS is, as we know, a Boxer twin. It's 1254cc. It's the shift cam engine. 136 horsepower at 7,750 RPM and 143 newton-meters of torque at just over 6,000. That's what you really feel when you ride this bike. It's just got torque for days. It's got a telelever front end. It's actually got Brembo brakes. Hasn't got the haze calipers like some other BMWs or whatever they've moved to now. It's got lots of bits to it. The styling is, well, you love it or hate it, don't you, really? I'm not sure I like it. It's got too many random bits of plastic vents. Look, I took it out for a ride the other night. It's covered in most of Surrey's dead flies. I actually took it down to Brighton on a Friday night, which isn't what most GS riders do. You got a hole down there so you can see the front tyre. It's a bit bitty, but do you buy it for its looks? Probably not. You buy it because it can crush continents and go around the world. Apparently, I don't know how many people actually do that, but it's a very comfortable bike. Now, the seat on this is very, very impressive. It's super squishy. I've done a couple of 100-mile days on this, and it's just uber comfy. No ergonomic qualms whatsoever. The Quickshifter, that needs mentioning, because when I've ridden bikes this engine before, back in March, I went to Spain to ride the R1250R and RS with BMW. They were clunky as hell. This one, though, is pretty buttery smooth, so I think they've just adjusted the chain. I think it's just better. Anyway, the electronics, obviously, it's got the full kit and caboodle, your traction controls, your ABSs, your cruise control here. It's not radar cruise. That'll be coming on the new R1300GS, I would have thought, because everyone's going after radar cruise control, unless you're Triumph and you put the radar on the back of the bike by accident. Yeah, you've got your heated grips up here, your mode button, your keyless go there, keyless fuel tank. You've got a little cubby hole here, which I don't know, you can fit the key in there, or maybe some prophylactics if that is your bag. And you can adjust the suspension firmness here between road and dynamic, or if you hold it, you can adjust the preload. I can't do it with the engine off, so I can tell it how fat I am. And the menu system is really easy to use. If you've never used this on a BMW, it's super intuitive, and you get lots of lovely messages that tell you that your fuel's okay. Now, full up, this has a 30-litre fuel tank. It'll do about 300 miles in the real world, slightly less. The mirrors, they are small. They are weirdly small, especially compared to, hello, Maris, my new camera. They're small compared to my KTM 1290 Super Adventure, but they are very clear. They're pretty decent, and obviously BMW want you to spend loads of money on their, is it a rebadged Garmin? Can't really remember. The big bonus is that if you do buy the BMW one, you can control it through the bike, so you don't have to touch the screen, which is great. You've got a DIN connector here because BMW does still live in the 1930s. That's actually USB, sorry, spoke too soon. It used to be a DIN connector. Whoops, that is now a USB. Hooray, they've moved on. The screen adjusts here. It still does annoy me with the buffeting, but you know, whatever, all screens do on motorbikes. And that is it. That is the GS. There is one more gripe. The buttons aren't illuminated, so at night I couldn't really see what I was doing. That seems like a massive fail. My KTM's got illuminated buttons, as does the Multistrada V4 and pretty much everything else. Okay, the sun is setting, the cows are mating again. Let's go for a ride on the GS and talk about, well, look how bloody wide it is for a start. It is an absolute tank. It's quite intimidating to look at. But actually, it's got a great balance, as most Boxer twins from BMW do. Let's sort you out, matey boy. Right, as with most modern BMWs, it's keyless. So yeah, you just hit that and it comes to life. Now, this is the first surprise you get when you fire this bike up. It's got an Acra can on it. Normally, from the factory, it wouldn't make a slight bit of difference, but this is loud, and on a cold start, it's quite rude. Yeah, that's not a cold start, but anyway. It does have a rather delicious old school burble from the exhaust, especially on upshifts and downshifts, and when you're decelerating using the engine, it just goes pop, 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 and it's actually really addictive. I haven't ridden a bike that sounds this exciting, not exciting, this interesting for ages, sort of Euro 5 and everything. Anyway, the next thing you'll notice when you get on a GS and ride it is that the ride is pretty damn plush. It is really good at ironing out the bumps in the road and just floating over crap, basically, not literally, but yeah, if I went down here on my KTM, I'd be all over the place and I'd be worried about my bike's connection with the tarmac. On the GS, it just kind of thunders along, and in my first ride I used the word imperiously, and that is the feeling you get on this, is that you can just go forever without stopping, and you're in such comfort in the rider triangle, being so relaxed that you probably could go forever. So yeah, it is a proper tourer. Would I take it off-road? Maybe down a green lane. I've not tried it because this one's about 22 grand and I don't want to have to phone up BMW and say Entschuldigung Sie bitte, ich habe Ihnen GS gefickt, because that would not go down well, and then I would get even more sassy Instagram DMs from the BMW PR man. But yeah, it is just such a delight to ride, and it's a very relaxed way to get around, to the extent that I went out last Friday night at 8:30 in the evening, so half an hour before sunset, and I rode all the way down to Brighton, which is about an hour from me, and I just wanted to see the sea. And I would never ever normally think of doing that in the dark, but I thought, it's a GS, it's going to have good headlights. Well, this one's got the optional, I call them wanker lights, but they're probably actually called something like accessory light kit, large. And had a great time. And I rode back in the dark. Headlights, as I've said, the normal beam's a bit, it's bright, but it doesn't go very far. Really put the high beam on. It's pretty decent as far as motorbike headlights go. Next thing we should talk about, the engine. It is a quick bike. It has got so much grunt. You never really have to worry about what gear you're in, and it's just really pleasing to surf around on that. And if that doesn't sound exciting, then well, I don't know, you'll probably go as fast on this as you would on a Multistrada on a public road, and that's got a lot more horsepower than this. That would just involve lots and lots of heavy braking. What that really means though in the real world is it's got huge flexibility around town, and you can just potter along. And look, I'm doing 40 and there's a little arrow above the number 4, my gear indicator, which means shift into 5th. It wants me in 5th at 40 miles an hour. And normally on a bike you'd be like, oh, when I accelerate now, it'd be like slowly pulling back the foreskin of a giant blue whale, but it's not, it still goes. It's like a sudden orca erection. It is really, really impressive the amount of stonk it's got, but I think I've said that about 15 different times now, so I'm going to stop saying that. What is this bike bad at? Doesn't wheelie as much as my KTM does, and I quite like that. I'm no wheelie king, but the KTM feels like it is designed for someone dare I say, a bit more sporty, maybe 20 years younger than the rider of a GS, but you know, this will still boogie and it will still lift the front wheel off crests and all the rest of it. It just doesn't have the same sporty DNA that the Multistrada and the KTM have, and that's fine. This is about getting from A to B over long distances and getting off the other end feeling like you stepped out of a car, because that's kind of what it boils down to. But I love bikes like this. As I've always said on my channel, if you're new to the channel, hello, thank you. As I've always said, there are so many different flavours of motorbikes, and there isn't a bad one. There isn't a bad one that I've discovered. And this is just a great do-it-all flavour of motorbike that will make you want to get up in the middle of the night and go for a ride, or maybe not get up in the middle of the night, but at least go long distances and not worry about it. You won't worry about the rain because the weather protection is so dang good. It just feels like it's hewn from solid rock. It's my KTM, it's definitely hewn from not so solid plastic. So yeah, the build quality of this is really reassuring. It's up there with the Ducati, frankly. Look at that beautiful sunset. You probably can't see anything, but hey. Right, let's quickly talk about motorway manners and then we'll do a conclusion. Right, we're coming up to a 70-mile-an-hour limit, aka motorway speeds here in the UK. I can taste the Thai red curry I had for dinner. Up into third, and that's 70. Yeah, no dramas getting there at all. Now, I'm at 70 miles an hour, and you might be finding it a bit of a struggle to hear me because there's quite a lot of wind noise that's hitting me about here on my helmet, and that is with the screen in its maximal position, its top position, a normal human robot would say. And yeah, I'm 6'3", so I would need a little flippy up spoiler on top of the screen. But otherwise, cruise control on, and to sit here all day long. Now, I would love to take this bike on a European tour to bash out that boring first day through the top of France. Would I rather be on this than my KTM when I got to the twisties? No. And let's get to some mini twisties and we'll talk about why. Now, coming up to my twisty roads, and I know what you're thinking, what's it like to chase the red line on a GS? Let's ride it like my KTM. That's 9,000 RPM red line. It is, it's not as scary as my KTM. I can go full throttle in second gear on this and not be like this. If you really ham it up, come off throttle, get back on it or wheelie, and you can turn traction control off your wheelies. Your bag, but who buys a GS to wheelie unless you're being paid by BMW to make the GS look young and hip and sexy? Now, we should talk about the brakes because it goes quite quickly, and the brakes are stonking. They really are just stonking. I'm not so keen on the rear. The ABS kicks in really early on the rear, even on dry tarmac, but hey, I don't use it that often, to be honest. The handling on this is reassuring. It is very quick to turn in. You feel like, because the engine is so low in the frame, you just pivot about the engine, and it's like really flickable, possibly more flickable than my KTM, except it doesn't feel like it's going to send you into a tank slapper like my KTM. And when you come up to a corner, you feel like you can trail some brake into the corner because it's not diving on the brakes, because it's got the funny front end. But yeah, I do love the torque it's got. It is really, really addictive, and a well-ridden one of these is gonna be faster than a sports bike on a UK road. I remember trying to keep up with one of these in Wales in about 2013 on my Blackbird, and I thought, boring old GS. That would have been an 1150 probably. Couldn't keep up because the suspension on that GS was working overtime to iron out bumps in the road, and the rider just wasn't feeling any of that. It was just constant torque. Bah, bah, bah. Yeah, so there we go, my riding impressions of the BMW GS. What an impressive bike. Someone's going to say you didn't try the suspension in different modes. Well, yeah, in road mode it's softer, it feels a little bit more wallowy. I've left it in dynamic for most of the time, and that's what I've really enjoyed. And I've left the main riding mode in dynamic as well. I got Dynamic Pro, Enduro, Rain. Dynamic Pro, I presume, we'll just let it do a bit more wheeliage. Not tried it, frankly. Sorry, that's remiss of me. Do you want to know my real world MPG of this bike? Well, I don't know how many miles I've done since I've had it. I've averaged 50.4 That's about 2 miles per gallon better than my KTM. I would say the KTM is more than 2 miles per gallon more exciting though. But anyway, let's get back to me for a conclusion. Can you tell that I've joined the ranks of people who are quite fond of the GS? It's just a bike that really does do it all. However, for me, versus its rivals, other bikes still give me more of a thrill in the adventure bike class. Things like the Multistrada V4 Rally, that is the pinnacle of adventure bikes for me. My KTM 1290 Super Adventure, I think, is sharper, flightier, more fun, and the engine is way punchier. It's also got some technology included that this doesn't have, like the radar cruise control and electric suspension as standard. And the fact that you can pick one of those up pre-reg for about 13 grand makes this look very, very expensive. However, this doesn't rattle around over bumps like my KTM does. It feels well built. However, I know there are GS owners out there that have had, what should we say, fun getting their GSs warranted and things like that at BMW dealers. So do your research, but I see why they sell so many. It's an unintimidating bike once you get used to the weight at a standstill and making sure your feet are down. It's punchy, it handles well, even sounds quite good with that Acra pipe on it. It's just a very complete package, and to be honest, it's making me quite moist around the gills for that R1300GS. Hopefully that engine will get even more poke and just bring it up to the rest of the class. But for now, this is no dinosaur, and if you do see some good deals on these before it goes off sale, I would snaffle one up, or go and buy a KTM or a Ducati. I mean, is there a bad adventure bike out there at the moment? Not really, apart from the Tiger 1200, which isn't bad, but it gives me tingly hands. Anyway, I'm going to stop waffling and go home. Thank you for watching this. Hope you've had a great day. Give this video a like if it's been helpful, and go down to the comments, leave me the German word for funny front end. Lustig. Super geil. Ciao. It's got real character, this bike. I do enjoy it. Look at that sunset, people. This is why we ride motorbikes. It's the longest day of the year. Hopefully the kids are in bed. I should probably have done that and not left them chained up in the garden.